And that's still to come. But first, as Europe becomes the latest to experience extreme weather, as we reported earlier in the programme, a special report from the front line of climate change. ITV News has been to a British station on Svalbard in the Arctic Circle, where scientists are seeing firsthand the rapid changes to the environment. Temperatures there are rising at 3 times the global average, and last month was its warmest August on record. Our science correspondent Martin Stew joined researchers there and heard what happens there can impact the whole planet.
Giant glaciers have shaped the Arctic archipelago of Svalbard for millennia. The islands have just had their warmest summer in modern record. Temperatures 3 degrees above the average, evidence our climate is nearing a tipping point.
This is part of the Svalbard basement.
Ice scientist Dorothea is taking me from the British Arctic station to the rapidly retreating Brøggebreen glacier.
This formation is a good indicator that Svalbard has experienced the forces of nature over millions of years and has changed due to those forces.
But if that was over millions of years, how can we be sure that the melt we're seeing here from the glacier isn't just a sort of natural fluctuation?
It's got to do with the intensity and the speed of change.
Centuries ago, this 3,000-year-old glacier touched the fjord. Now, it's a 5-kilometre walk to get there. The ice and the history it holds melting before our eyes.
So ice like this gives us a glimpse of the past because the bubbles inside of it contain gas that give us an indicator of the greenhouse gases of the past.
So this gas could be hundreds or thousands of years old?
Yeah, thousands of years old, because we're further down the glacier and it could be that old.
That means the deeper you drill into the ice, the further you can look into the past. 800,000-year-old ice cores from Antarctica show how spikes in carbon dioxide mirror spikes in temperature. Currently, the world is getting warmer with no signs of peaking, and CO2 levels, fueled by man-made gases, are at unprecedented levels. The ice here is losing 1.2 metres of thickness a year, twice the rate of the 80s. And you can see the glacier's life ebbing away. Snaking streams of iron-rich red meltwater leaching into the fjord, changing the colour and composition of the water.
While the glaciers may be dying, the nutrients running into the fjord are bringing life and attracting these beluga whales.
Also known as white whales, this pod of around 30 belugas appear to be cleaning themselves on the shallow gravel bed of the fjord's edge. Their numbers have stabilised since hunting was capped, but scientists worry about other species. This year, the surface temperature of the fjord is 2 degrees hotter than average. I met Dutch scientist Max Willems.
So these are the tanks where we keep our polar cod.
In the neighbouring lab, she's giving fish a fitness test. The current the fish swim against is slowly increased. Oxygen levels in the water tell Max how hard the fish are having to work, and she can then assess how the warmth of the water affects their stamina.
So what I expect, and what me and my colleagues expect, is that when the water gets warmer, they will have a rougher time maintaining their fitness. It will cost them more energy to do their basic living.
The fish may be small, but they're a vital part of the food chain, a so-called keystone species.
What's your fear if we continue to see the sort of temperature rises we've seen recently?
So I fear that fish like the polar cod may not have enough energy left to stay alive, and that the animals that are dependent on them, like the polar bears, the narwhals, that they don't have enough food, and that it collapses the whole ecosystem.
It's not just the fjord changing colour. For 10 years, Kevin has been studying the greenification of the Arctic land. Mini glasshouses warm soil by a degree to see what vegetation could grow in the future. In the lab, he's trying to understand whether the amount of carbon collected by photosynthesis will be offset by the amount released by microbes in the thawing soil.
The important thing about that is that the amount of carbon that's within the soil of the Arctic is about 3 times the amount that's present in the Earth's atmosphere. So if all of that carbon gets burned off into the atmosphere, that's a potentially very, very bad situation.
Svalbard is only a small part of the Arctic, but there's enough ice in the glaciers here alone to raise global sea levels 1.7 centimetres if they melt. That won't happen overnight, but it is speeding up. Martin Stew, ITV News, the Arctic.
Fascinating, isn't it? Well, for an extended version of Martin's special reports from Svalbard, head to ITVX.